Welcome back to Sunday Night Spookies, the podcast dedicated to exploring the mysterious and the spooky unknown. My name is Lex.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is episode 16, Urban Legends.
Yes.
Specifically, the Dogman.
And Cropsey.
Yeah.
We are from Michigan, so the Dogman, well, you know more about it than I do. I don't know anything about the Dogman. My dad would be very disappointed in me.
Yeah, really, though.
And then I know Cropsey just from my random YouTube adventures.
And I do not. I've heard the name before, but...
So we haven't shared notes like normal. We don't share notes so that we have like genuine reactions. So we're going to start with the Dogman.
Yep.
I'm really excited.
Yeah. So if you live in Michigan, and I think it's pretty localized to Michigan, you've probably heard the urban legend. You've maybe heard of it, but not...
I've heard a little bit about it from my dad, but other than that...
Am I allowed to say? I'm from Traverse City, Michigan, Grand Traverse County, and it's very popular there.
Yeah, and I lived near there for quite a while, and I didn't hear much about it.
Yeah, every year around Halloween, and like the days before, days after, they would play... There's like a song, we'll get into it, but they would play the like story of the Dogman on the radio. WTCM was like I want to say that's like the country station, but every day, every morning on the way to school, I'd hear it around Halloween.
That's annoying.
The fact that I can't play it back just like from memory is a little bit sad, but it's fine. So in Michigan folklore, I don't know, Michigan's boring, so when I put the word folklore with Michigan, I'm like, that might be a stretch to make it sound cool. The Dogman is described as a 7-foot-tall, blue-eyed, or amber-eyed, bipedal canine-like animal, and bipedal means 2 legs, walks on 2 legs.
Yeah.
Just in case no one knows. With the torso of a man, and a fearsome howl that sounds like a human scream. And like a canine head.
Does he have the legs of a dog?
Great question. I think if I was going to picture it, and I don't really know what to picture, but if I was going to picture it, I would... It doesn't make sense that it's a torso of the man to me. To me, it should just be like an upright dog.
Well, I immediately think of like the werewolves from Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's kind of what but like bulkier. That's how I picture it. So the Dogman was allegedly witnessed in 1887 in Wexford County, which is one county down from where I grew up, one county south. According to the legend, the Dogman appears in a 10-year cycle that falls on the years ending in 7.
Really?
Yeah. So the first one was like 1887, 1897, 1907.
Weird.
Yeah. That's what they say. So there's been sightings reported in several locations throughout Michigan, mostly in the northwestern quadrant. I thought that was an interesting way to say it, of the lower peninsula. So, like, I was trying to think of places out there, but it's, like, mostly just empty.
Field.
But it's, like, Traverse City, Leelanau, Sutton's Bay, Interlaken, Buckley, Kingsley. Those are really small. People probably have no idea what those are. But, like, if you're looking, hopefully this is the right thing, the right angle for the YouTube, but it's, like, here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, Michigan's shaped like a glove. People don't know that.
Really?
I found that out recently. People don't know that, except for people who live here.
It's like when you grow up in Michigan, you grow up going like, I'm from here.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, always. So, that's interesting. So the sighting in 1887, or the original sighting, quote unquote, that they call it that, the original sighting, occurred in Wexford County when 2 lumberjacks saw a creature that they described as having a man's body and a dog head.
But pay no attention to its legs, I guess.
Right, we're not worried. If it's got dog's legs, that reminds me more of like a weird centaur. Kind of. Yeah. But like wrong.
Wrong.
In 1937 in Paris, Michigan, I have no idea where that is in reference to the northwestern quadrant. But a man named Robert Fortney was attacked by 5 wild dogs, and he reported that one of the 5 dogs only walked on 2 legs.
Okay.
That was the dogman, he says. And there's been several other reports of similar creatures being sighted in Allegan County in the 50s and in Manistee and Cross Village in 1967.
Okay.
So there's lots of reports of it.
Yeah.
Not a lot of proof happening. But in all of the stories that are told, the dogman never harms, maims, or kills anyone. He only frightens them.
Well, I guess it's kind of like the Bigfoot thing. Like, how many times have you heard a story about Bigfoot getting after somebody? You know?
Right. And there's more stories.
Do cryptids in general harm anybody? I've never heard of anybody being attacked by the Mothman.
Well, skinwalkers and wendigos. They're a cryptid.
Yeah.
But I also... There's gray area.
Gray area with the skinwalker thing.
Yeah, so the dogman just terrifies his victims. But also, I say his, I'm saying he and his or whatever, because dogman, whatever. But when I was researching it, I was seeing a lot of they.
Oh.
Like, dogmen. Like they were like...
in multiples?
Some websites were referring to the dogman as like a plural. Like there could be more than one. Like, on some websites, it was like the dogman.
Yeah.
And then on some website, it was just like dogmen, or like they only scare their victims. They don't hurt their victims. I guess that would make sense, though. Because there can't be just one.
We always say Bigfoot, but there can't be one Bigfoot around all over the world.
Right. So I'm saying he, but most likely they. If, in fact,
there are many.
Yeah. So there is a song that goes with it. I encourage you to look it up because I'm not going to sing it.
Damn.
Just not happening. I'm going to read the lyrics. It's more poem. It's more like presented as a poem anyway.
A dramatic reading.
Yeah.
We love these.
And there's more stories in the song. And I'll get into the background of the song after I go through it, but just, it's meant to be a spooky song, and it is, especially when you're like 12 years old hearing it on the radio.
Yeah.
On Halloween, or it's like nighttime on Halloween, you're hearing it. It's a little spooky. So it's actually called, there's multiple versions. The only one that I could find the lyrics to was the version in 97. And it was written by a guy named Steve Cook in 1987, I believe. And he's updated it like with new verses as like more sightings have happened. And I guess he rewrote it in 2007, but I couldn't find the lyrics from the 2007 rewrite.
87, 97, 2007.
Interesting, isn't it?
Interesting.
So it's called The Legend, 97. So, it's a little bit long, but it's kind of fun. Hopefully I don't like mess it up because it rhymes a little bit, but okay. A cool summer morning in early June is when the legend began at a nameless logging camp in Wexford County where the Manistee River ran. 11 lumberjacks near the Garland Swamp found an animal they thought was a dog. In a playful mood, they chased it around till it ran inside a hollow log. A logger named Johnson grabbed him a stick and poked around inside. The thing let out an unearthly scream and came out and stood upright. None of those men ever said very much about whatever happened then. They just packed up their belongings and left that night and were never heard from again. It was 10 years later in 97 when a farmer near Buckley was found. In 1917, a sheriff who was out walking found a driverless wagon and tracks in the dust like wolves had been a-stalking. Near the roadside, a 4-horse team lay dead with their eyes wide open. When the vet finished up his examination, he said it looked like they'd died of fright. In 1937, a schooner captain said several crew members had reported a pack of wild dogs roaming Bowers Harbor. His story was never reported. In 1957, a man of the cloth found claw marks on an old church door. The newspaper said they'd been made by a dog. He had to have stood 7'4". In 67, a van load of hippies told a park ranger named Quinlan they'd been awakened in the night by a scratch at the window. There was a dog man looking in and grinning. In 77, there were screams in the night near the village of Bel Air. Could have been a bobcat, could have been the wind. Nobody looked up there. Then, in the summer of 87, near Luther, it happened again. At a cabin in the woods, it looked like maybe someone had tried to break in. There were cuts around the doors that could have only been made by very sharp teeth and claws. He didn't wear shoes because he didn't have feet. He just walked on 2 paws. So far this year, no stories have appeared. Have the dogmen gone away? Have they disappeared? Soon enough, I guess we'll know, because this is the time to fear. For another 10 years has come around, the 7th year is here. And somewhere in the Northwoods darkness, a creature walks upright. And the best advice you may ever get is to never go out at night. So he walks on, pause. So he's got dog legs.
He's got dog legs and a man torso and a dog head. I wonder why every 10 years.
Because that's how legends work. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's got to be some kind of like, watch out, because this thing, whatever the thing is, will be back on schedule. So that's the story. It's way creepier when the guy reads it. There's like a mandolin playing in the background in that one. It's pretty good. I would look it up on YouTube. Steve Cook, the legend. It's interesting. So he wrote that in 1987. And he initially played the song, recorded and played the song as an April Fool's joke.
Oh.
Yeah, for the radio. Because he's, disc jockey, Steve Cook.
Right.
And he based the song on myths and legends from around North America, and that's why it sounds so similar to things that we've already kind of looked into, like other cryptids. But he had never actually heard of a dogman when he recorded it. And he said in an interview, I didn't write down the year it was. I want to say it was like 2010 was the interview. He said, I made it up completely from my own imagination as an April Fool's joke for the radio and stumbled my way to a legend that goes all the way back to Native American times. And we talked about this before.
Yeah.
I just want to say that's a direct quote. I didn't write Native American times.
Yeah.
It confuses me because indigenous people have been around for much longer than we have. So, and still are.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that means like
old.
Like, I'm just like, I assume he's insinuating that it was a really long time ago.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was weird.
It's a weird way to put it.
It just, yeah.
I don't know if I believe that he didn't hear of the dog man.
Right.
When he wrote that.
Yeah. So he goes on to say.
Because I can come up with some pretty crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Especially if he, lived around here.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So he goes on to say that he's, quote, he says, I'm tremendously skeptical because I've sort of seen the way folklore becomes built from the creation of this song to what it's turned into. But I do believe people who think that they saw something really did see something. I also think that the dogman provides them with an avenue to explain what they couldn't explain for themselves.
We've talked about that theory before. Mm-hmm. Especially with the changeling episode where we're like, I think the changelings gave people an excuse for their crazy behavior.
Right.
Because it's crazy. Your brain can go to some weird, irrational places and really believe that some of, the crazy stuff. And so that, it makes sense to me. He would say, I think people have blown this out of proportion, and now people who actually might have seen something weird in the woods, oh, it's the dogman, it's gotta be the dogman. Or it's Bigfoot, it's gotta be Bigfoot.
Right,
you know
always. What I mean? Yeah.
Sorry, Dad.
So, in the weeks after he first played the song, it was the most requested song on the station. It's a good few minutes long, but it's entertaining. He did end up selling cassettes with the song on it for $4 a piece, and he donated the proceeds to animal shelter.
Oh, I like
ironic.
That. Yeah.
And over the years, Cook has received more than 100 reports of the dogman's existence.
Oh, he personally has?
Like, people have come to him and been like, I know what you're talking about because I've seen it.
Do they not know it's made up? Like, his song is made up?
I mean, now they must, right? I mean, like...
Right. Hopefully he told them, like, this is an April Fool's joke.
It's not an April Fool's joke unless you tell somebody it's an April Fool's joke, right? So, since then, the Dogman's been on TV shows, websites, books, and I did read that people because when we look into, like, the Dogman, like, to us, it's like a cryptid type of thing, but then there were, like, websites where people were like, this thing is real.
Oh, yeah, my dad has sent me a few podcasts, because he listens to our podcast, and, like, he listens to a bunch of spooky podcasts, and he'll send me episodes to listen to of their podcasts, and they're always about Bigfoot, they're always about the Dogman. Like, I think there's a whole YouTube video, or a whole YouTube channel dedicated to the Dogman, and I'm like... I just think it's crazy because, I mean, same thing with Bigfoot. Like, I think that's crazy too. This whole thing's dedicated to this one cryptid, but we still haven't found any evidence of it yet.
Right.
Like, that's what freaks me out, or not freaks me out, but like, that's what gets me like, okay, because I kind of like how innocent until proven guilty, skeptical until proven. For me, anyway. Yeah. Like, I'll hear what you have to say about the Dogman, but skeptical until proven. Right. I want to see some pictures that I can't explain. Yeah. That you can't explain.
Right. People tell their tales of the Dogman pretty much in any platform that they're able to. We know that from literally everything other,
we do.
Like aliens. I mean, like you said, Bigfoot. Everybody, if they've seen it, heard it, even thought for a second that it was there, you're going to hear about it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Especially up north.
Especially
because, like, the times that I've heard about the Dogman, it's like the old men sitting in a diner, like, oh, old Jeff saw the Dogman out hunting last weekend. Like, stereotypical small town diner movie scene. That's how it is. That's how it really is.
True that, though. I did see a website where people had found Dogman tracks, that were too big or spaced too evenly, which I thought was a weird thing to say. And they would photograph them, and then sometimes they would even do like a plaster cast of the like footprint in dirt.
Wolves.
Yeah. There's bigger animals out there. I don't really like to think about that because it freaks me out a little bit, but there's bigger animals than just dogs out there.
And up north, bobcats. That's a thing.
Everything.
That's a thing.
Yeah. The whole thing. So, to me, what are the odds that Steve Cook just happened to write a song that knowingly matched the descriptions and the habits of an actual cryptid? That there's like I didn't mention, because I couldn't find a year for like the Native American times that he was talking about. There was no year, because I read that like the Odawa tribe was around the Manistee River when like the first reports of the Dogman happened, but I couldn't find anything about what year that they like were there or had settled there. So I don't have a year, and so I didn't include that.
I think the probability of him never hearing of the Dogman while living in Traverse City, slim to none. Because even I've heard of it. Like, I didn't know the whole story behind it. I didn't know the whole legend. But people talk about it. Like I said, small town men in the diner. People hear about it.
I mean, but here's my thing. I can go like one of two ways, because like he made it up. And he made it up in 1987, right? And so people talk about it now. Were they talking about the Dogman before? Maybe. Or it was one of those things where, you know how there's a word for it, I don't remember the word, but you know how you like you say, oh, I have an idea for a graphic for Saturday Night Spookies. Cool. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, oh, Lex, I have this really great idea. I thought about this graphic. And you're like, I told you about that last. Like, that was my idea that I told you. And I genuinely believe that it was my idea. Right. Because you told me in passing. Right. So it could be like a case of mistaken identity almost, where he heard it when he was a kid. Right. Or heard about it when he was a kid. Right. Because it had been around.
Oh, yeah.
either he made it up and it was just like this weird coincidence
Just,
that
like,
he made
perfect
this
timing.
up. Because, like, the records of the dogman existing, or like the reported sightings of a dogman, go back to at least 1887. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what time, like, those tribes had been there.
And for him to get the years right of every 7 years.
Right. It's just
or
weird.
every 10 years.
Right. Just interesting.
It's, yeah.
And then there was, like, another theory that maybe Steve Cook's, like, legend just served as, like, a catalyst for, like, a mass invention of, like, this huge belief system. Maybe.
That's happened before with other things.
Well, because you, like, you know, like, you're growing up and you spend time around, especially in northern Michigan. And I'm sure everywhere, but, like, northern Michigan, like, campfires. You sit around the campfire and you're talking about, like, what monsters could be in the woods, ghost stories, all of that. And, like, no one really believes those things to be true, but maybe the Dogman, like, once that song came out or, like, the legend came out, it was just like, oh, but maybe there is monsters in the woods.
Yeah, like the Dogman.
So it let people, like...
Well, and it was played around Halloween every year.
Yeah, every year. For, like, every day. I would hear it on the way to school. And so...
I wonder if 97, when he released it... Mm-hmm. Then it became a campfire thing. Well, and like the grandpa telling the young kids that wouldn't have heard it on the radio, and then those kids grow up remembering their grandfather telling about the Dogman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's many different theories. I know there's people that have sworn to see the Dogman. I would not be opposed to go camp in the woods and find the Dogman.
Well, if he's not going to hurt me, or says he's not just going to frighten you,
right? And
I think I'd be less scared of the Dogman than would be of a bear.
Yeah.
Because the bear's going to hurt me. It says the Dogman doesn't hurt me. He can scare me.
It says. Doesn't hurt me.
It doesn't hurt me. Okay, so, like, this is my last thing that I have. I have a lot more things to say about the Dogman, but this is the last, like, informational thing that I have. So, we talked about how, like, there's Bigfoot, and, like, there's Bigfoot in, like, China and Montana and Canada and, like, all over the entire world. A lady named Linda Godfrey from Wisconsin. She wrote a book, or I want to say, they refer to it as a book. I don't think it was that long, or a short story called "The Beast of Bray Road," and obviously I didn't read it. Don't have that kind of time, but she talks about a beast with a dog face in Wisconsin. It's just like right over the lake there. Yeah. So that's interesting, and. Somebody gave like a little bit of like a generic, like, this is what the book is. I guess it like starts out with this couple's parked. This is like the beginning to every scary movie. A couple's parked doing things couples do in a parked car.
At night in the middle of nowhere. At night in the middle of nowhere.
We'll just leave it there.
Let your imagination run wild.
The windows are foggy. They hear something outside.
So they're not flipping through the CD book.
That's a pretty intense activity for me. So you don't know. I don't know what year it was either. So who knows? Okay. They were just like rifling through cassettes. We don't know. But so they're there. They hear something outside. Windows are foggy. Can't see outside.
Windows are foggy.
And so they're like, wipe a spot on the window.
Why are they trying to look outside?
They heard a noise. You have to find out. I wouldn't. I'd just sit there. I would just sit there. I don't need to know. I don't need to know what that noise was.
I'd leave. I'd drive away.
Right.
Put it back in your pants and drive away.
CDs don't fit in pants, Sarah. Anyway.
I mean,
so they hear something outside, and they, like, wipe the fog off the window, and there's a dog face staring at them through the window. So...
Does it have beady red eyes?
I didn't get that far, but... So there's a similar creature.
You also have to factor in werewolves, though. Because people have taken spin-offs on werewolves.
Yep.
Because what are werewolves? Big, giant, doggy things?
No, they're wolves. They're half man, half wolf.
What are wolves? What do they look like? Dogs.
That's true. I got
a half wolf laying on the couch over there.
True that. But I have a lot of feelings with the Dogman. I think it's about as real as Bigfoot.
See, I would argue it's less real than Bigfoot. Maybe. I don't know much about the Dogman.
I think the belief in the Dogman is as real as the belief is in Bigfoot. Do I think that the Dogman is necessarily real? No. But I also think Bigfoot is real. Or like whatever the creature is that is Bigfoot.
Bigfoot. Sasquatch.
I don't know. If there's a Dogman, I don't think it's localized to the northwestern quadrant of Michigan. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, because if it was, somebody would have found it by now.
Listen, we haven't found Bigfoot
Yeah,
yet.
but Bigfoot's all over.
There's multiple Bigfoots. Bigfoot?
I'm ready to... Hey, my family owns a cabin in the middle of literal nowhere.
They have Sasquatch calls. Do we have to...
We're gonna buy a Sasquatch collar and hope we find Sasquatch or the Dogman.
I think...
Let's go.
Yeah.
My dad will give me the keys to the cabin.
I just had the stupidest thought. Like, because they said that the Dogman has like a scream like a human. Do we just go into the woods and start screeching to see if
Okay, not only is that therapeutic, but we might also find the Dogman.
That's an idea.
Oh, we gotta bring camera guy Dylan around to capture it.
Yeah, camera guy Dylan.
He would definitely go scream in the woods.
For sure he would. For sure he would.
Oh my gosh. I think at some point we need to go on a Dogman adventure.
I think that would be
Or just a cryptid adventure. Let's go camp in the middle of the woods for a week.
A few days and just see what we can find. Could find some fairies. I don't know.
Yeah, just a whole adventure.
Yeah.
Let's see what we find. Might end up like the Blair Witch Project, but you know what?
Do a little solid recreation.
That movie is terrible. Even the recreation of the movie is terrible. Fight me on it.
I didn't like the redo. I didn't like any of it. I liked the original because for a really long time I thought it was real. That's a whole other story. But that's what I've got in the Dogman.
That's a whole other episode, probably.
Probably. But that's what I've got in the Dogman.
All
or
right.
Dogmen.
Dogmen.
We don't know.
So now, after our Dogman debacle,
yeah,
we're moving on to Cropsey. And this one I think is a little bit more well-known because there was a show on Netflix, I think called Killer Legends, that the first episode of that was about Cropsey. And there's documentaries on it. There's a movie based around the actual original urban legend. And this one is a bit more dark. It's a bit more rooted in truth. If you were going to do Dogman, I wanted to do one that was like, urban legend come true. You know what I mean?
Right, I get that.
So this one's a little bit more dark. But that's usually where I gravitate towards anyway. So, here we are. The legend of Cropsey starts on Staten Island in New York. We're driving over. Going for a road trip. And it basically started the way most urban legends do, to scare kids, kind of like La Llorona, to scare kids away from traveling too far from the house, going out at night, sneaking out, what have you.
Right.
The legend goes that Cropsey is a homicidal maniac who...
Those for legal reasons, I'm joking.
It's caught me off guard because that's something that I would say. Okay, so Cropsey is a homicidal maniac who escaped from a mental hospital who had a hook for a hand on Staten Island. And he would hunt the local children and drag them back to the underground tunnel system beneath the ruins of the old Seaview Hospital that was abandoned.
Okay.
And they would never be seen again. Seaview Hospital it was a real place. It used to be a tuberculosis sanitarium. So it was a real place with real tunnels underneath it. And that's what the legend was. If you went too far into the woods or you went too far from home, Cropsey was going to get you.
Okay.
Like that was the legend. And for a long time, it was just a legend. Until the 80s. And, fun fact, in 1981, the movie The Burning was released. And that was based on the urban legend. Not what I'm about to tell you. That was actually based on just the urban legend. So, starting in the 80s, the children of Staten Island had more reason to fear Cropsey than ever. Because he was real.
Oh, that's right.
So we're going to talk about a man called Andre Rand. And Rand worked he was like a middle-aged guy. Rand worked as a school janitor at the Willowbrook State School. And the state school was supposed to be a place of peace for children that were intellectually disabled. And we know what happens with those. It was found to basically be hell on earth, kind of like Pennhurst was when we talked about Pennhurst. Multitudes of all kinds of abuse. It came out in the 70s that this is what was really going on. Some guy did an expose about it, but it wasn't shut down for 15 years until 1987. So it went after the expose, it ran for 15 years.
Yikes.
It was eventually shut down and then just left there, like abandoned. Everything was left there. It was just kind of like an old abandoned building. That was the state school. The state school was also home to one of the worst unethical medical practices known today, because it was a home for kids. Basically, kind of like the Pennhurst episode, if you had a disabled child, you would kind of just drop them off at the door and leave. And a lot of these kids were abandoned, which is probably some of the reason it didn't get shut down for a while, is because...
Like, what are we supposed to do with these kids?
They were just kind of abandoned there. And because they were abandoned, they decided to do some medical research. And in the name of hepatitis research, they would inject the kids with hepatitis just to see what would happen and just to watch the virus.
I'm guessing they got hepatitis.
I was like, do you know something about this? I was like, oh my God.
I wonder what will happen if we inject these kids with hepatitis. Well, I'm no doctor.
I think they got really sick.
I'm no doctor, but I think they got hepatitis.
And that's kind of all I found about that. I'm sure if I dug really deep, I could find more about why they decided to do it. But from what I was reading from a few articles, that's just what they did. They just wanted to see how the virus would run its course. And so they just injected these kids, mind you, cognitively impaired kids.
Right.
Who didn't really know what was going on.
Right.
With hepatitis. Right? Plan, everybody.
A little inhumane, but that's
just makes me so mad.
Just a regular day in medicine.
Yeah. So back to Rand. The same year that the school was closed, 1987, Rand ended up being arrested in connection with the disappearance of one of the girls in connection with the state school, Jennifer Sheeger. I'm so sorry. Some of these names in here are weird, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounce them. Jennifer was a 12-year-old girl with Down syndrome, and like I said, she was connected with the state school. During the time of the arrest of Rand, he was homeless and living on this weird makeshift campsite that he made on the grounds of the old state school. Mm-hmm. So like I said, the building was abandoned and just left there, and he kind of just made, after he was a janitor, so after he lost his job, kind of just stayed there and lived in the woods.
Right.
Yeah. It's also important to note that this state school was relatively close to the Seaview Hospital, the abandoned Seaview Hospital of the original Cropsey urban legend. And then I'll come up later. After 1 month of Jennifer's disappearance, searchers finally found her body in a shallow grave on the school grounds in the vicinity of Rand's campsite. By the time Rand was arrested for this, he obviously was charged with murder after they found her body. He already had a very long criminal record, which, after I read this criminal record, I'm just going to pose a question to you.
Okay.
Why hire somebody? I'm assuming in the 80s background checks were a thing, maybe, right? Or maybe not.
Well, this is I'm just making myself sound so stupid. But how would you do one? I mean, you could look
I guess
up,
it's true.
You could look up if somebody had a criminal record. Well, when did the internet exist? It's like the other question.
I don't know. Maybe we're like making millennials out of ourselves.
I mean, in my lifetime, you could get on the internet with a CD-ROM.
Yeah, and
you
dial
know what
up.
I'm saying?
And dial up.
And like, right. So like, is it 87?
87, yeah. So maybe background checks weren't.
Or they weren't, or like maybe you checked to see if somebody had a criminal record. Like you called your local, I don't know. Maybe it's like the 40s at this point. I don't know. 1987 really wasn't that long ago.
Well, I think that's why my mind went there. I'm like, that doesn't seem that long ago.
It probably wasn't in the same way that we do now.
Probably. Okay.
It's general, like you call references, check for a background, like on criminal record, and that's probably it.
But I think working for a school, I would hope that they were a little bit more strict for that.
You would imagine.
I mean, this type of school, probably not. But, like I said, by this time, Rand had already had quite the list of interesting crimes. He was in jail for a period of time in 1969 after attempted sexual assault. He did more jail time in 83 for kidnapping a school bus full of children and driving them to the airport.
And that was, like, before he worked there?
Yeah.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
right.
you would think that if he was, and quote me if I'm wrong, I think the attempted sexual assault was on a young person. Maybe not a minor, but I might have heard. I can't say for sure because I didn't write it down. I didn't see for sure if it was a minor.
Either way, why would you hire somebody who's got a sexual assault charge?
And the kidnapping
of children.
Right, and I don't know if 83 if he worked at the state school already, because it closed in 87. So if he had already worked there...
okay.
Anyway, he kidnapped a school bus full of children and took them to the airport. I don't know what for. But it was a school bus from the YMCA that he hijacked. So, there's more.
Okay. There always is.
So after he was arrested for Jennifer's murder, police had highly suspected him of being behind or involved with, at the very least, 3 other Staten Island children disappearances and 1 adult disappearance, including 5-year-old Alice Pereira. Like I said, I'm so sorry for these pronunciations. She disappeared in 1972. 7-year-old Holly Ann Hughes, who disappeared in 1981 after she was last seen with Rand the day of her disappearance. 11-year-old Tia Heese Jackson, who disappeared in 83. And 22-year-old Hank Gaffario, who was a mentally disabled man who was last seen with Rand in a diner before he disappeared in 83.
Okay. But
so...
none of that was sketchy. I don't even know what you're talking about.
No, right? That's not sketchy at all. So back to his trial for Jennifer, because they were like discovering all of this while he was still going through his trial. The jury could not come to an agreement on the murder charge for Jennifer. He was charged with murder. The jury couldn't agree on it. Wasn't enough physical evidence. And in 87, when his trial was going on, physical evidence was kind of the thing. If you didn't have physical evidence, like, because DNA wasn't really that big. Yeah. It was just kind of like, well, did you see him do it?
Right, because the rest of that's circumstantial.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So they couldn't agree on it, but they could agree that he took her. Okay. At least. So he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Rand would have been up for parole in 2008, which is kind of a weird thing scary thing to think about with connection with all this other stuff. Right. However, in 2004, new evidence was released or found with the disappearance of Holly Ann Hughes. And there was one of his fellow inmates that he talked to actually took notes and turned in his notes because Rand basically confessed to this inmate and in great detail how he took Holly.
And that inmate snitched, didn't they?
Yep.
Hell yeah, you get less time if you're snitching.
Right, you get a good deal if you do that.
Yeah.
And if you're not a total piece of shit, I'm going to snitch on somebody who took a little girl too. Right. So they couldn't charge him with murder, but they charged him with another 25 years for kidnapping. Sure. So he'll be eligible for parole in 2037 when he's 93 years old. So I don't think he's going to make it there.
I think old boy is going to rot in there.
Yeah. However, the 4 bodies were never found. They still are not found. They cannot find these 4 people that went missing in connection to Andre Rand. And I think that's crazy. Like, what did you do with them? Right. You clearly did it. 2 of the 4 were last seen with you.
I guess, okay. So my question is, Cropsey was already a thing before he did it. So is he just hoping that they're going to blame it on Cropsey?
I didn't even think about that. That's a good question.
You know what I'm saying? Like, was he like, oh, well, Cropsey already, they're just going to blame it on Cropsey.
Well, and I think they made the connection because it was in such a close vicinity to where the actual urban legend took place, like by the old Seaview Hospital. This is by the old Seaview Hospital.
Right.
And he was hunting and abducting kids.
Right.
So did Cropsey. Like,
right.
Didn't have a hook for the hand. Well, I don't have a hook for the hand. So
couldn't have been me.
Couldn't have been me. Mm-mm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a good point. I didn't like really think about that.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, they didn't blame it on Cropsey because here we are.
No, but he's on. When people think of Cropsey now, it's like Andre Rand was Cropsey come to life,
right?
And I think this is kind of an interesting legend. There's many urban legends that have come to be true. Like there's one that I guess I've watched plenty of YouTube videos on random shit like this, but of like the legend of if you leave your window open, some homeless guy can come live in your house. Well, that really did happen. Like there was some lady who for 3 months lived in the attic of some guy's house, and he set up security cameras because his food was missing, and he thought he was going crazy.
I did see that. I saw footage of that.
So I'm like,
it was real, but I did see footage of like some lady just like coming down the stairs
or out of the pantry.
And she was like, was she like squat on his table or something weird? Do you know what I'm talking about? I feel like I saw one where she was like sat on the table and was like eating his food or something. I don't know. Probably. Maybe it was a different one. Who knows? Lots of homeless ladies.
But case in point.
Same difference. I knew what you meant.
Yeah. There's many urban legends come to life. If you guys want us to do like a part 2,
there's always room for a part 2,
or just urban legends in general. We even thought about doing like urban legends per state, like the most popular urban legends in each state. I think that'd be fun to do.
We already got Michigan and New York out of the way.
Yeah, we got Michigan and New York.
48 states left.
Yeah,
only 48. It's fine. So if there's any other urban legends you want us to cover, let us know. Even if you don't really know much about them, something you just heard in passing,
we'll look it up.
We'll research it for you so you don't have to do the hard work. I think pretty easy. I don't know. Do it. You can reach out to us on any of our social media sites. We are on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Sunday Night Spookies, and we're on Twitter at Sunday Spookies.
We also have 2 links in our description. One is for Instacart. I say it every week. I hate grocery shopping, and Instacart is great. Especially because when I go to the grocery store, I pick up way more than I need, and I end up wasting money. Who likes wasting? She knows. Who likes wasting money? So you can go, and if you use our link, you can get free delivery on your first order of $30 or more. We also have a link for our Buzzsprout, which is the hosting website we use to run all of our podcast stuff. It's amazing. It tracks everything in one place, super affordable, easy to use. We love this hosting website. So if you use that, you can get an Amazon gift card if you use our link. These are affiliate links. We do get a small kickback if you use them. We also have a link for our Cash App if you are feeling ever so gracious. We're 2 broke college girls, love to adventure. We would love to go seek out the dogman. Love to go seek out any cryptid, really.
Really anything. Yeah.
But a lot of these adventures cost money, and podcasting equipment costs money. So, like I said, if you're feeling gracious and you'd like us to visit a place or a specific topic, you want to throw in a comment about what you want, we'll give you a shout out, and everything that we get goes right back into getting more and better content for you guys.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Sunday Night Spookies.
You can join us next week for our slumber party. We're doing an episode all about dreams, their meetings, some of our dreams that we've had.
Yep.
We're in the middle of finals, so we wanted a laid back. We're going to be in PJs. We're going to have blankets, have some tea. It's going to be a chill episode.
Yeah.
So come back.
Time. New episodes are released every Sunday evening. Thanks so much for listening, and as always,
stay spooky.